Welcome, everyone.
I'm Zainab.
And I'm Anya.
And we will be your MCs for this evening.
Before we start, we'd like to play you a short video.
Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons. People gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
Well, with that, we hope this short video helped you catch a glimpse of what today might look like for you all.
But first, we want to tell you all that there is no need to record, no flash please, because all of this will be uploaded onto the TEDx official YouTube channel. Thank you. You know, Zainab, I'm actually starting to feel really bad right now.
Really bad? All of a sudden, why do you feel so bad?
Bad for everyone who couldn't be a part of our audience tonight. They're missing out on the best experience of their life. See what I did there?
Right. Anyway, moving on, shall we, with the talks?
Right. Let's skip ahead to our next speaker.
Arel.
Arel Chatterjee is a sophomore at Farmington High School who loves to do a little bit of everything. And while she does that, she enjoys reading and baking in her spare time. She also enjoys exploring new parts of herself and her culture during her life. She also loves to talk a lot, which has led her to pursue a TED Talk for you all here tonight. Let's welcome her out. Come on, Arel. Woo!
Hello? Okay. When I was a child, I could fluently speak a language that wasn't English. I could converse with my relatives, and it was a way to relate to my culture. Bangla, or Bengali, was a reminder that I come from a beautiful heritage. However, as I grew older, the world of English literature seemed to open around me, and I found flipping through the pages of books like Percy Jackson to be super exciting. With that in mind, by the time I was 10 years old, I could only form together a few disjointed sentences of Bengali to get my point across to my extended relatives, a weakness that was painfully exposed when I visited India at the age of 11 and was asked why I couldn't speak the language that all of my ancestors had. This, albeit embarrassing experience, served as a catalyst to show me that I was disconnected from my culture and also had me wondering why I lost the ability to speak Bengali when I could have full conversations just a couple of years ago. I knew that obviously I couldn't string together words as fluently because I just didn't speak Bangla as much anymore, preferring the familiar tone of English, especially since both my parents also spoke English at home. I realized that this idea of practicing something consistently was the reason that my knowledge of a language I once had a firm grasp on had eroded away. I realized that not practicing even occasionally had caused me to lose all my progress. To me, this opened up the idea of consistency. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with the sayings, practice makes perfect, or stick with it and you'll get better. The dictionary defines consistency as the agreement or harmony of parts or features, but I'd like to define consistency in regards to this TED Talk and us as people with futures. My definition of consistency is the ability to keep showing up and put in effort, even when immediate results aren't obvious. Now, this is probably similar to what a lot of you are already thinking, But today, I'm here to expand on that idea of consistency, to introduce new ones, and to hopefully connect those to a bigger picture that will resonate with everybody here today. With that in mind, let's take a look at a statement that I personally feel like sums up the essence of my TED Talk. Consistent actions rather than striving for perfection lead to lasting growth and success. If everything I say from here goes in one ear and out the other by intermission, remember this. First, I'd like to talk about what consistent actions really mean. I like to compare this to a plant. Imagine planting a tiny, unremarkable seed in the ground. It's small, unnoticeable, but every day you water it, and it grows and grows until one day it becomes a huge tree, standing tall. In the same way, consistent actions can transform our lives. Consistently showing up every day and putting in the work will make you better, whether you're trying to understand calculus or just trying to learn a new instrument. That idea takes root in your mind, and as you build upon it, it grows. That's why this is so important, because the idea of consistency is a foundational concept in life and a way to invest in our future. Let's think back to my story about losing my ability to speak Bengali. This situation is present in multitudes of different people's lives. No matter who you are, this idea of consistency remains a constant. That's why not putting in the work can turn a small problem into something much bigger. Recognizing when you go down that path of procrastination is crucial. Say it's Monday, and I have a huge project due Friday. I'm like, I'll get this turned in on Thursday. And then it's Wednesday, and I say, when that happen? And it's Thursday, and I say, wow, I should probably start. And it's 11 p.m., and I do start, and I'm like, wow, I was given 4 days for a reason, but it's okay. And I finish, and it's 2 a.m., and I say, wow, it's finally turned in. Is it good? Oh. But it's turned in, and that's all that matters, right? And I think to myself, oh my God, I'm never doing this again. I hated this. My sleep schedule is all messed up. And I don't, at least not for another month. Now, I know most of you, if not all of you, have procrastinated like this. I know I certainly have. That was a true story. But imagine if you had been consistent, if you had shown up, if I had turned that project in on Thursday, if I could scroll on TikTok guilt-free. Making a small effort to change for the better can be like a tiny change for massive results. I'd also like to highlight really quick, this doesn't have to be a big change at first. You don't have to have a huge plan within a day of consciously deciding to make a change in your life. You don't need to have a 30-day workout plan the minute you say, I'm gonna go to the gym. But if you can make that promise to yourself that I'll get a little physical activity in, I'll take a 10-minute walk, you'll be better than yesterday. And it's only a 10-minute walk, right? It's that simple. But it's not. Because if it was that simple, then everyone here would be the best versions of themselves. You'd be a marathon runner. You'd be a doctor. You'd be the president. At this point in my talk, everyone has heard everything I've just said at some point in my life, in some variation. But they haven't applied it for some reason. If you listen to my talk until right now, you'd be like, yeah, Rel, I should be more consistent. Maybe I'll go home today and I'll practice the piano and I'll go to sleep on time. But you will, maybe. But eventually, you'll fall into a spiral that's happened so many times before, like when you postponed your New Year's resolutions until next year. Everyone knows that consistency, that practice is important, which begs the question, why can't I maintain consistency? At the end of the day, as with most things, the answer lies in your mindset. You might be wondering, how do these issues relate to consistency? That's because these problems are the biggest things, the biggest obstacles to improving your life. Let's start with the first one, the fear of failure. This is probably the most obvious problem. Everyone fails when trying to get better at something. It's a way of life. Happens to everyone, I know. But people are scared of not being good at something at first, or being judged for not being good at something, and that's stopping them from prioritizing their growth. One week, you'll make great strides towards your goals. The next, you might not make much at all. Hitting a plateau is enough for people to give up, just because they're not seeing any visible progress. Next, we have avoiding difficulty, which is closely related to fear of failure. Both stem from the desire to avoid uncomfortable experiences and emotions. But running from difficulty has something to do with not stepping outside your comfort zone. When you're in a little bubble of emotions and activities that have already been established, it's really hard to break away from that. If your after-school routine consists of you coming home and crashing on the couch, making that change to start doing homework every day after school is going to be hard. But rather than pushing through and dealing with it, those that run from difficulty will never be consistent. They'll take the immediate gratification that comes with lying on the couch rather than doing this and being better in the long run. Finally, the pursuit of perfection. It's common for people to be so focused on being perfect that they forget that progress comes from consistent effort, not from trying to be flawless from the start. This ties back into fear of failure because one commonality between the two problems is that people are obsessed with visible results. Not seeing improvement doesn't mean you're not improving, and that's something that a lot of people forget. Let's summarize. Consistency is essential, and there are 3 huge things that we're all doing that stop us from applying it. The sole purpose of why I'm here today is to make sure that all of us are finally motivated to start being consistent with our actions and to stick with our futures. Not for a few days or a few weeks, but to ensure that at the end of the day, at the end of every day, we can all say we've made strides in becoming stronger people. When you leave here today, be on the lookout for the times that these 3 problems stop you from being the best version of yourself. I can say that every person in here is strong and determined. By being mindful of our fears and taking the chance, I feel like all of us can keep pushing forward and growing our skills. So take that step and remember that you hold the power to shape your future. The best is yet to come. Thank you.
That was such a great way to start the show, don't you think, Anya?
She came in like a wrecking ball.
Okay, let's put that down. I thought we agreed you wouldn't quote Miley Cyrus.
Why? That was good. Plus, the audience loved it. And I never agreed to not doing that. You did.
Right, okay, I'm sure they're all amused. But anyway, we enjoyed that talk a lot. As people who come from similar backgrounds, we can relate a lot as well. Matter of fact, humko bahut acha laga tha. Zabardast. And in case you didn't know, that meant we enjoyed it a lot. Amazing. In our languages, you know, we have to keep in touch with our roots here and there, too.
Okay, let's shut up now. Let's move on to the next speaker. The audience is probably getting sick of us.
Right. Moving on, we have Anthony Rogers. Anthony Rogers, born in the late 1900s, realized his life's passion after a particularly tumultuous life event. He is constantly looking for ways to inspire people, and when not poring over legal mortgage documents or fiendlessly posting memes on social media, can be found gaming or enjoying time with his family. He has a beautiful wife and 3 brilliant children, loves music and movies, and cannot draw to save his life.
Let's give Anthony a warm welcome, everyone.
There are moments which mark your life. Moments when you realize nothing will ever be the same, and time is divided into 2 parts, before this and after this. Sometimes you can feel such a moment coming, and that's the test, or so I tell myself. I tell myself that at times like that, strong people keep moving forward anyway, no matter what they're going to find. Hi. I've been told that there's a handful of you here who were told that I was going to be giving a speech about the most expensive haircut I ever received. And that's not wrong. We'll get to that. My name is Anthony Rogers. I believe that people are the best versions of themselves when they are inspired, when they are supported, when they are served, and when they are empowered. And I stand on the stage today proud to announce that I no longer want to die. It wasn't always that way. And to any objective outside observer, putting the pieces of my current situation together, people might understand why I might want to shuffle off this mortal coil. I have a constant burning electrical sensation in my lower abdomen. Feels like when you lay on your leg just a little too long and it starts to wake up, and it's all pins and needles and fire. It's that way in my abdomen and up my right side all the time, without fail. Yet I continue on, and it's all driven by my before this and after this moment. We all have them. I'm sure there's people in this audience who could point to a point in their lives where something happened and your life was forever changed. Anybody identify with that? A few people? Absolutely. So you know what I'm talking about. But of course, since this is TED, we have to have, 1, research in science, and 2, obligatory audience participation. So by show of hands, how many people in this audience have somebody close to them, somebody in their life who's gone through cancer? Just show of hands. More than I expected. Statistically, 54% of the world's population will know somebody, have somebody close to them who's endured cancer. Anybody want to throw out just a wild guess how many roughly percentage of the world's population will suffer from cancer themselves? 65%? Anybody higher, lower? 30? I hear 30. Anybody else? 70%? 100% given enough time? Well, maybe not cancer, but the inevitable specter of death looms for us all. Yes. So statistically, not 20, not 40, but close. 40.5% of the world's population will have some form of cancer at one point or another in their life. And I like to talk about cancer because I consider it to be one of the most misunderstood diagnoses on the planet. See, in order to really talk about this, I gotta go back in time a little bit. Specifically to Monday, November 9th, 2015. When I woke up at 1 in the morning in the worst pain I've probably felt up to that point in my life. I felt like somebody had wound up and kicked me square between the legs as hard as they possibly could. And when the time came for me to get up about 7 o'clock and roll into work, my wife's like, nope, you're not going to work. I'm taking you to the ER. You've been up all night. You're in constant pain. We're not doing this. Gave me the ultrasounds and all the tests and checked me out, and I heard those words that nobody ever wants to hear. Yes, it's cancer. Yes, it's probably spreading. Yes, we need to get it out right now. Right now turned out to be about 2.5 days. I was in the hospital on that Monday, and on Thursday the 12th, I was on the operating table for my orchiectomy, which I won't get into if you don't know what that is. Look it up, Google's free. So after that surgery, they did the biopsy, and I got to join the ranks of the 40.5%. But cancer, a lot of people think cancer is a disease. It just shows up in different places on your body. It's not curable. It can only be beaten back into remission. It can never actually be cured. There's no cure for cancer. The reality of cancer is that's not what it is. Cancer actually looks a little more like this. A massive classification of a boatload of different diseases. Some of those diseases can be cured. Some of those diseases are incurable, and some of them can only be beaten into remission. There are more cancers with cures available than there aren't at this point. That's also why a universal cure for cancer is probably impractical. Not impossible, I won't rule anything out, but it's impractical. Probably 100 or more of these floating around out there. Many different kinds of cancers, each one with its own unique treatment, and not only that, but each individual with the same cancer will not experience the same kinds of treatment for it, because it's tailored to the individual, the severity of their cancer, etc. So cancer looks very different for everybody. Mine, when they did the biopsy and all the nuts and bolts came out of the woodwork, is testicular choriocarcinoma. And that diagnosis earned me a very special nickname. See, choriocarcinoma makes up less than 0.5% on average of cancers found in men, testicular cancers found in men. And more so, 1% of cancers found in men will be testicular cancer of some form. So choriocarcinoma is roughly 0.5 of a percentage point of that 1%. And this earned me the nickname the purple unicorn, because a statistical impossibility, but here I stand. And that name would come to fruition in more ways than just this down the road. We'll talk about that later. Fortunately, I have a very, very good doctor for cancer, because she had a tie-in with this gentleman. Larry Einhorn is a brain trust of cancer knowledge. Most notably, he cured Lance Armstrong's testicular cancer, who is the same type of cancer that I had. So, in a way, he and I are both purple unicorns, though I cheat far less at sports than he does. Dr. Larry Einhorn's work has saved over 300,000 young men's lives. He is brilliant, and he was behind my treatment. My oncologist had to line in to Dr. Einhorn the entire time I was going through treatment. I owe this man my life, among many others. But it wasn't easy. See, my diagnosis was stage 3C, and those of you who know something about cancer diagnoses know it doesn't get a whole lot worse than that. That means that the cancer had spread via my lymphatic system to multiple places throughout my body, most notably my right lung. There were several nodules there, and a mass about the size of a grapefruit in the area behind my stomach, known as the retroperitoneal area. It was almost squeezing off my vena cava, which is the blood vessel that provides blood to the lower half of your body. So I was in some pretty dire straits. Fortunately, my treatment plan had a percentage of survivability somewhere between 95 and 98%, and a 90% chance to cure it entirely, meaning it's gone forever, it's not coming back. If you get another diagnosis, it's completely separate. So my chances were very good, but it was going to involve multiple surgeries, ended up being 5 of them, and an intense chemotherapy. The second most intense and devastating chemotherapy, second only to a breast cancer treatment known as Red Death. So my fight was going to be intense. The picture on the far left is after my first surgery. Went to Sushi House. Highly recommend if you haven't been. I was rocking at that point somewhere in the neighborhood of 260 to 270 pounds. Pretty hefty dude. By the time we get to the middle picture, where I got my most expensive haircut, that's where my hair started falling out. 1/6 was the day I was admitted to the hospital because I had almost no white blood cells in my body, meaning my body was no longer able to fight infection because the chemo had killed almost all of them. Merry Christmas. I was down to about 230, 240 pounds at that point. And not that I would recommend chemotherapy as a weight loss program, but it was very effective. And then the picture on the far right is me still in the hospital for treatment for neutropenia, where all my blood cells had died. Fortunately, Games Done Quick was that week, and so I had something to keep my mind occupied and not go crazy. I now do regular volunteering with Games Done Quick online. Saved my sanity. But with all that, the worst was yet to come. Granted, I had a lot of good things happening in my life. I had friends and family who would bring meals to the house and drop them off. They had a meal train set up. A company that I work for sent crates of food to my house, had somebody come by twice to help clean the house at times when I was physically incapable of doing it. I had a lot of support. But as the chemo got really bad, about week 2, week 3, I wanted to give up. I didn't want to commit suicide, but I wanted to die. I wanted to stop the treatment, let the cancer do its thing, anything just to make the constant sickness and the taste of all food being ash in my mouth stop. But I made it through. I got through the chemo, started to bolster my spirits, got the lung resection done, and then the worst surgery of the 5, the retroperitoneal lymph node dissection. This is a diagram of the retroperitoneal area. You can see where those lymph nodes are. What you can't see is the nerves that wrap around and layer over those lymph nodes. They had to remove 27 lymph nodes. And many of them had confirmed necrotic cancerous tissue, meaning cancer tissue that had died because of the chemo. And that took a lot of my nerves with it in that retroperitoneal area. That's why I have the burning sensation, the constant neuropathy in my abdomen. And the lung resection, because of how they had to go into my lung to get the cancers out, scraped up all the nerves along my ribs here, so I have that same sensation here as well. The nerve damage caused many years of pain medications I had to be on. Thankfully, right now, my pain regimen is a couple Tylenol twice a day. I've been able to get off everything else, so yay. Love that. But after that, I was able to go back to work a couple months later. Lucky me. But I got a hero's welcome. I was a trainer at the time for a very large mortgage company in Detroit. If you know, you know. And my team greeted me with this, and I tied in with a close friend of mine who was a fellow trainer, and he had developed a program through which I would find my purpose in life, to make as many people as possible feel inspired, supported, served, and empowered throughout the course of my life as I could, which is why I'm here today. That purpose, that meaning, is why I wear this outfit. I became a font for joy. See, the only way I managed to get through those months of chemotherapy was I became a hope parasite. Anything that would give me the smallest shreds of hope. A good video game with a plot that really inspired me, a piece of music that moved me, a movie that made me feel good, the friends and family members who helped me, who spoke good things into my life, the strangers on the street who told me I looked good, all of that, anything I could. And when I was at my absolute lowest, the one thing that kept me moving was curiosity. As in, what fresh hell awaits me this morning? I don't know, but I gotta live if I wanna see it. So, if you hold on to nothing else in your darkest moments, curiosity can be a very strong motivator. So, I find my meaning, I find my purpose, I wear things that give me joy. You might have a hard time seeing the lanyard that I'm wearing. This is actually my work lanyard. I wear this every day. And some of the pins that I have on it, I've displayed up here. All of these pins have some special meaning for me. They were given to me by friends or family members or people that I trained at work. They commemorate events that I volunteered for. A lot of Games Done Quick pins on there, you'll notice. Some of them are pins that were designed by friends of mine, actually made pins. So every pin on this lanyard and on my little cork board at home where I keep the ones that don't fit have meaning. Give joy. Give that reminder of that purpose that I have. So now we fast forward to 2024, where a child of mine encouraged and triggered another before this and after this moment for me, and I realized I had neglected a very important piece. See, chemotherapy is traumatic, if you don't know. Sitting there in that chair, feeling that medicine coursing through your body, feeling yourself get sicker and sicker and sicker, it hurts. And as a result, for that reason and many others, I got a PTSD diagnosis. Because I could not drink orange juice without feeling myself sitting back in that chair as that poison made its way through my body, killing all of the fast-growing cells like hair, nails, white blood cells, gone. And that trauma brought me on a mental health journey that has now culminated in me finally being able to enjoy a glass of orange juice without feeling sick, which is good. I love orange juice. It's a wonderful drink. And it's nice to be able to enjoy it again. So, if I could give you 4 takeaways from my walk through my before this and after this moments, it would be these. First of all, hold on to every shred of hope that you can, and hold on to that curiosity. Sometimes they'll be the only things that get you through the day. Do not neglect your mental health like I did. It will not end well for you or for those you love. Tell your stories. I stand here on the stage and I'm talking about this to you fine folks out here in the audience because I feel that people need to hear these stories. People need to know what it's like. People need to understand and have that empathy for what other people are going through when they're dealing with things like this. And when you pass away, those stories that you told might be the only thing left of you. And hold on to optimism. And remember that optimism isn't an attitude of everything's great, everything's wonderful. It's not blind optimism. It's, yeah, this shit sucks right now, but it'll be better later. And because I'm a quote guy, I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite quotes where I found a lot of meaning. As fragmented, imperfect beings, yours is a never-ending quest. A quest to find your purpose, knowing your end is assured. To find the strength to continue when all strength has left you. To find joy, even as darkness descends. And amidst deepest despair, light everlasting. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for sharing your life story with us. I'm sure we can all learn to integrate at least a little bit of your optimism into all of our daily lives. Isn't that right, Zainab?
Yeah, but speaking of daily lives, that has me thinking, Anya, what's your high school experience been like so far?
You know, Zainab, it's actually been pretty good. I love meeting all the new people and socializing at fun school events, just like this one. Although, there's just one thing. I wish that some of my teachers would be a little bit more willing to incorporate my personal learning style into their teaching. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. But, you know, that's actually what our next talk addresses.
Wow, Zainab, you're right. Why don't I go ahead and introduce them? Mackenzie Funderburg and Miley Miles Kiles are both juniors at Farmington High School. They're both unique individuals, as all students are, who have unique learning styles. Having moved around a lot in their lives, they know how you can shape your education to fit your personal learning style and how that can change your education and in turn change your path and the future.
Let's have our dynamic duo come out. Mackenzie and Miley, everyone.
Hello, my name is Miley Myers, and this is...
Mackenzie Funderburg.
And this is 101 Ways to Change Your Future. We're going to start with a quote by Harriet Tubman. She said, "A strong and determined mind can break any chains that bind us."
And we're here today with strong minds and determined spirits as a testament to our breaking the chains that binded us, with hopes that the next generation can follow in our footsteps. And to start, we want to share a few of our personal experiences.
As a child, I was always moving around. 5 states, 9 moves over the span of 16 years. I was often thrust into new school districts and different learning curriculums with different learning styles, and it made it hard for me to keep up. Oftentimes, I found myself struggling, and I knew that something needed to change. I realized that I wasn't just one learning style. I was all of them. I can't confine myself or conform to the way that schools have been teaching me to be. I had to take control of my own education and become a better leader. Now for Mackenzie's story.
When I was younger, I didn't really like going to school. I didn't believe that people could make us sit in desks for so long and we couldn't move around. I'd rather just be at home where I could actually do things. And as I got older, I was just kind of the same way, and my teachers never really made an effort to help teach me, and I could never learn well when I did try. And by the time quarantine ended, I was around 8th grade, I realized something needed to change. I wanted to learn now in school, I just didn't know how. And so I started asking my family members, I started asking friends, and everybody gave me a different answer on the way I can start learning. And that's when I realized that I don't learn from just one different way, I learn from all of them. Don't confine yourself to just one style of learning. Learning is a spectrum.
Kids shouldn't have to figure out how to learn by themselves, but they do. We are examples of this. The issue is that most children don't have the ideal that they can independently learn by themselves because of the way that schools teach us to be dependent on their set curriculums and the way they teach us to be. This ideal is what is restraining these young minds from reaching their full potential.
And today we're here to change your mindsets, which would be the beginning of revolutionizing the way you learn. Because usually we're taught at a young age that you can learn from one of four different ways. Reading and writing, kinesthetic, auditory, and visual. Well, we're here to debunk this myth, as we've had personal experience that you don't learn from just one style of learning, you learn from all of them. Multiple classes with multiple teachers and class structures requires you to use multiple different learning styles. Learning is a spectrum, and you too can maximize your mind. Do not let others control your future, you do.
For me, as an example, in my English class, I realized, especially during our poetry unit, that I learned audibly and visually. In seeing the poems and hearing them, I was able to better my writing. And so, I would like to leave you all with a poem today. O children of tomorrow, why start tomorrow can be done today? O children of tomorrow, if there is a will, then there is also a way. So keep grinding, keep studying, keep pushing the limits because good things come to those who wait. O children of tomorrow, start today because tomorrow may be too late. Because the truth is, you don't need 101 ways to change your future.
You just need one.
Change your mindset.
Change your story.
Change your story.
Change the way you learn.
Change the way you learn, and you too can become a leader of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, that talk really encouraged me to take charge of my own learning and did a great job at depicting what students often go through on the daily. I'm definitely going to start integrating change in the way I learn, too. What? Oh, yeah, no, me too, for sure. Why do you sound like that?
What? I don't sound like anything. What are you talking about?
Okay, anyway,
Totally
let's
normal.
move on.
Okay, fine. You caught me. Listen, as much as I love that last talk, there's just one thing I couldn't stop thinking about.
What?
Block blast.
Are you serious right now? Block blast? In
Yeah.
front of a TEDx event?
I'm sorry.
Okay, whatever. What's your high score then?
Oh, actually, now that you mention it, you probably won't be able to top it. 13,592. Beat that.
Wow, that's really high. Guess what mine is?
What's
70.
it?
No.
Oh?
70,598. No. No revives, all authentic. What can I say?
Oh, okay, Zainab. Wow. I thought I was one who's chronically online between the two of us.
Chronically online? I don't like your tone. My daily screen time goes down a few seconds every single week, and that counts for something. That's progress. But actually, doesn't our next speaker talk about the effects of using our phones so much?
Wait, I think you're right, Zainab. Can you introduce us for her?
I was getting there. Neha Prabhu is a sophomore at Farmington High School. In an era where socialization has gone online and people are constantly stuck to their phones, Neha sees a problem. Through her observations and research, she has discovered what teenagers must do to fix their relationship with phones, but what we all must consider as a society. In her free time, Neha loves to read, bake, spend time with her friends and family. She is also an aspiring medical professional who aspires to practice medicine alongside the Doctors Without Borders organization. Let's give it up with Neha.
What if I told you that you are actively participating in a complex
I don't
and
know.
engaging activity
Anxiety.
that is constantly consume any piece of information, news, or content instantly and effortlessly? Research shows us that the average Gen Z social media user spends around 9 hours of screen time daily. So, what's the outcome of this currently? I came across this visualization that really got me thinking about what the costs of social media are. The circle on this screen represents the time that you have remaining, assuming that you live a nice long life of around 90 years old. So if you're 18 years old right now, this is an optimistic estimate of the time that you have left. Take a second to take that in, because unfortunately, it does get worse from here. About a third of that time is going to be spent sleeping. Around 126 months will go to school and your career. Around 36 will be spent cooking and cleaning. Around 36 will be spent on chores and errands. 27 will be spent in the bathroom for personal hygiene reasons. And 18 will be spent driving. That leaves you with 334 months for everything else. So this is where you tick the boxes off of your bucket list. This is where you pursue your dreams and travel the world and leave your mark. How you spend this time is going to determine the type of life that you live. But your time and energy aren't just things that you spend. It's something that you invest. It's investments in the type of life that you want to lead and the person that you want to become. When I was choosing my classes for the semester, I decided to take a psychology class. And on the first day, when I walked into class, my teacher explained to me about something called neuroplasticity. The term neuroplasticity refers to the brain's ability to change and adapt due to experience. It essentially tells us that you can build your brain to be good at anything by simply doing it over and over. So the way that you spend your free time will determine the type of life that you will live and your cognitive abilities. So take a second to ask yourselves, what do you want to do with that free time? What things do you want to do that you haven't done? Who do you want to spend that time with? What is it worth investing it in? Now, I'd be willing to bet that scrolling through TikTok or binge-watching Netflix probably did not come to mind. On average, the typical 18-year-old in the United States spends 93% of their free time looking at a screen. And that's not counting time for school. Wrap your head around how sad that is. Imagine getting to the age of 90 and looking at this visualization and thinking about all the things that you could have done that you did not do because you got distracted. And ask yourselves, what do you think over 26 years of screen time would do to you? How would it change your life? Now, in the past, research has proven that social media apps like TikTok and Instagram have a strong link to mental health issues, like depression and anxiety. But recently, statistics have shown that in the last 10 years, the length of consumable media has decreased severely, which has impacted our attention span and diminished our ability to concentrate on anything for longer than 15 seconds. In a Pew Research Center survey, 31% of teenagers claim that looking at their phones cause them to lose focus during class. In a study done by the National Institute of Health, teenagers claimed that if they spent over 2 hours a day on their screens, they received lower test scores. Think about how this might affect your personal growth and your goals, and the time that you spent on things that truly matter to you. Instagram inherently says that your worth is largely defined by what you look like and what you do on vacation. It compels you to capture all the most meaningful moments of your life and post them to your entire social network. And it utterly says that it's more valuable to have 1,000 people give you social approval than a few that deeply care about you, even when it's not your best day. Snapchat tells its users that the quality of your relationship is best measured by the frequency of your communication. Regardless of what you're actually saying, you get a point added to your Snapchat streak, even if you just send a picture of the side of your face. Twitter says that anything worth saying can and should be reduced to an arbitrary number of characters. It says that the world is black and white, that it's more important to be updated about anything than deeply informed about everything. The overall messages that the social media platforms tell us are that the world is black and white, while technologies of the past tell us things like the world is timeless and reflective. This summer, I did something that changed my way of thinking. I went on a 30-day social media fast, and for the first time in a long time, I felt connected to the world, to my friends, and most importantly, to myself. The first few days were hard. I found myself constantly reaching for my phone in anticipation of a new notification, message, or like. And despite what I thought it would do, not using my phone did not make me feel like a loner in the woods. I actually had much more motivation to work toward my goals and spend time on things that actually mattered to me. Now, don't get me wrong. Social media isn't always bad. Despite its reputation of being dangerous or scary, the only scary thing about my social media is when I look back at what I used to post in middle school. Social media can be a powerful tool. It can foster relationships, inspire movements and ideas, but we need to learn how to use it in moderation. That can look like surrounding yourself with posts, videos, or influencers that leave a positive impression on you. If your social media is filled with toxicity and drama and negative ideas, you're going to view the world as a much more negative place. Whereas if your social media is filled with positivity and ideas that align with your goals, you're going to view the world as a much more positive place. Social media isn't always bad. We just need to learn how to use it in an intentional and positive way. Do not let yourself get to the age of 90 only to look back on your life and realize that while you were trying to avoid FOMO, you actually missed out on living. That free time is your most valuable resource. Do not give it away for free. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time so far, everyone.
Zainab, I'm starting to feel really hungry right now.
Me too.
Hey, you know what? I thrive when I chive. Good one, huh?
Right on. Anyways, Chive's Kitchen Catering is right outside the corridors in the cafeteria, so feel free to dine, eat food. That marks the start of our intermission, but just make sure not to bring any food inside the auditorium, please. Thank you.
About 40 minutes. Anyway, let's go eat.
Okay.
Welcome back, everyone. We hope you thrived alongside of Chive.
Yep. Up next, we have an astonishing writer who has prepared 2 beautifully written spoken word poems for us all tonight. Anya, could you present her to us by chance?
Of course. Ara Rogers is a sophomore at Farmington High School, and she plays the flute in the FHS marching band. She is also an avid poet. She strives to tell stories that are often left unheard and wants to become a better poet and better human being in general every single day. She has 2 siblings who she gets along with most of the time and is a proud geek. Let's introduce
have her come out. Yay.
As strong of a start as it would be for me to begin this talk going right into my first poem, I have been advised to give a vulgarity warning. So, if you're a kid, maybe cover your ears. If you don't like hearing words such as fuck, too late. On that note, let's get started. Being a teenager feels wrong all over. Growing up is like a workout for my brain. It's already turning to rubber. You know the feeling. I think we're all sick of being strong. Pretending to be strong, we're not all that good at it. I'm sick of being mature. I'm sick of being the bigger person. I am sick of only cursing under my breath, my middle fingers limited to pointing through the fabric of my non-existent pant pocket to the boys in my class who know me by name and still call me Miss. I'm sick of it. They call themselves feminists as they mansplain to me what feminism is. It's as though I'm a girl, too dumb to see how they twist the definition, groping it the same way that they will grope dumb girls in the hallway. I am sick of knowing exactly how I feel without needing to write it out anymore. I am sick of writing. These sticky notes full of reminders that surround my desk make more of a cluttered mess than in my own head. They don't help me do my homework, but they do a damn good job of reminding me that I can't remember anything. I'm sick of anxiety. I'm sick of ADHD. My teachers can clearly see my accommodations that are then promptly ignored. I'm sick of being a people pleaser. I know, it doesn't make anything easier, but somehow, some way, from someone, I have learned to give myself up and work for people. Work with people. I'm sick of working with people. I'm sick of turn and talk with your table because the people at my table have a horrible sense of humor. In Japanese class, they memorize the characters for ho and ge, and remember nothing else. They will replace stupid with retarded in casual banter as soon as the teachers turn around. They're not looking, but I know their ears are open. I didn't know that you had to hear with your eyes. I'm sick of not having enough authority or courage to call them out on it. I'm sick of not being respected when I do. I just want to be able to tell them, shut the fuck up for once. And when will it be my turn to be the smart ass in class? When will it be my turn to have the temper tantrum with the teacher? When will it be my turn to talk back? There's an angel on my shoulder whispering in my ear and spitting in my face that scolding them will not change them. If you're not a good example, how are they going to learn? I am sick of setting an example. It's as though their behavior is a reflection of my own. Boys will be boys, dumb girls will be held accountable. I am sick of biting my tongue when I just want to yell. I am sick of holding it in when I just want to cry out. I am so sick of yelling, and I am sick of crying. I am sick. I'm so sick. I am so tired of forgetting. I am sick of remembering. I'm sick of the idiots in my grade, and I am sick of my grades. I am so sick of the fact that I have to constantly compromise with myself that the holes in the grade book don't matter too much, right? So long as I have A's, but maybe B's are still okay. What's 1 or 2 C's, right? D is still passing, and what's 1 or 2 F's over a high school career? I'm sick of all of these excuses to my teachers that I send. It's as though I'm mending glass shards with needle and thread over and over and over again. Are you familiar with the definition of insanity? Oh, speaking of insanity, I'm pretty sure that hormones drive us all insane. I am sick of hormones. I'm sick of mood swings. I'm sick of being told that it's just teenage mood swings. I am sick of the hurt. My brain and my skull and my scalp have constant menstrual cramps, and I have a migraine in my uterus, and no matter how much I say that it hurts, all I get in return is, it's just hormones. I'm sick of being studious. I'm tired. I'm so tired of staying up late just to finish my reading, and I'm tired of never being able to finish my reading. I am sick of waking up to find new red stains in my sheets, and I'm sick of oversleeping. I'm sick of teen. 14, 15, 16. I'm sick of not being an adult yet, and yet I'm sick of lifeguards flirting with me who think that I'm old enough that they can get away with catcalling me or asking me out for drinks. This only serves to me as a reminder that I will never be young again. I remember when my biggest concern was what presents would be under the Christmas tree, and now it's if I'll be able to walk home from the bus stop, a 2-minute walk, mind you, without being harassed. My life isn't halfway through yet, and yet time is running out. There are hardly any beginnings anymore, and yet there are so many ends. Broken needles, cutting ties, loose threads. Soon I will have nothing left to sew with. At least I don't need a thimble anymore. My calluses are so rough and tough and thick that they serve as pin cushions. I have nobody left to sew for. Because I'm sick of everyone. I'm sick of my family. I am sick of my friends. I am sick of myself. I'm sick of my grin. I'm sick of my thick hair. I am sick of self-care. I try so hard to be healthy, and yet I can still see myself getting thinner and thinner around the waist every day. When I step out of the shower and look in my reflection, I run my fingers over my rib cage, just to make sure I'm not hallucinating it. I am so tired of being able to see my rib cage, feel it. It's a reminder that it's not enough. I'm sick. I'm sick. I am so fucking nauseous. Yeah, that's old news now by this point. I am sick of everything I touch being something to lose, something to shatter that I will then have to fix again. The spool is almost empty. Thread is running out, so don't let me near you. Please. I can't lose you, too. I'm sick. Sick. I'm sick. Don't you hear me? I am deathly contagious. I am unwell. I just want to throw up my thoughts over the metronome of church bells. Hell, I may as well be a magician. Prepare for my disappearing act, number infinity and 2. This time, I won't do anything different. The magic is all on you. I'll vanish from your sight. It happens every day anyway, right? I'll only be visible when I am in bed, staying up late to read or write again. You can't see me. You can't. You can't see the dark circles over my cheekbones, or my greasy hair, or my rib cage, or my mind, or my thoughts, or anything else that I need to hide. And when you ask me how I'm doing, I will look you dead in the eyes, knowing that you cannot see through this transparent body. I'll give you my invisible grin, so sweet and so sugary and so real, it will completely cover this burning sensation, this burning flavor that we are both feeling. And I'll say, I'm doing fine. What about you? That was my first poem, titled Nausea and Needles. My second and final poem tonight, another warning for you, is dedicated to victims of injustice regarding sexual assault. I hear you. We hear you. If anyone in the audience wants to leave because the subject makes you feel unsafe, please feel free to do so now. However, if you feel the need to leave because the subject makes you feel uncomfortable, I urge you to remain seated. You need to hear this the most. On that note, my final poem, God, do you see this? But let's start with a conversation, story time, if you will. Skinny is not a compliment. Can we establish that real quick? Skinny is not an invitation. You know, I'm always giving these awkward thank yous to perverted compliments, only for them to be perceived as accepting a request that was never asked. It would always get mad at me when I left him on read, spam text after spam text saying, baby, I miss you, I miss you, I miss you, I miss your body, and I miss your breasts, and I want my hands on them. Like, what? Rewind. Where's the, hi, how's your day? No biggie, right? Its nails, were always sharp. Now that I think about it, little boy sounds a lot more interested in my body than somebody our age should be. Eventually, I stopped telling my friends about him because they tell me that it's creepy, but he says he doesn't mean it like that. He says he's not like that. Everything that he said, to be honest, says present tense. I believed it. Told myself that he doesn't know any better either. Like, he's not sexist because he's a mama's boy. He's not demanding. He asks before holding my hand, so sweet of him, when he's already handcuffed us together. He says it's because he's committed. How romantic. If I say that I don't like it, it's like he can't see how I'm still chained to him. He says I can let go whenever I feel uncomfortable. He never said anything about leaving. I don't pull anymore. It's useless when he has the key. It's fine. I mean, what's a little chafing in the wrist when we're in this together, right? Does anybody see this? Anyway, sorry, that was a bit heavy. Back on topic. He doesn't degrade or shame because, as he says, all he ever does for me is praise my name as he would pray and pray over and over again, as he would feel everywhere that I asked, no, told him not to. He said he worshipped me. I know, I was there. But that's not what he means. He worshipped my body. Obviously, I mean, come on. Duh. Like, he sees something in me, and if I don't give it to him, I don't know what he's going to do. Even I can tell now at this point, he thought making me feel special was enough to call me his whenever he was horny. But if I'm a god to him, I have to give him something, right? He prayed to me like a goddess, as he made me get down on my knees for him. He prays and 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 pray and pray and... Oh, so it seems there was a little misunderstanding. I have mistaken the wolf for the golden retriever, the predator's real disguise. He demands for the goddess's forgiveness, praise, rolling off of his tongue only to cover all of his lies. He's not even trying. He won't do it again, right? I'm the prey now. We're playing a game of cat and mouse, and Kitty's got claws. Dug into me several times. I say no. I say let me go. I say take me home. He doesn't listen. I'm only reprimanded, so I try to be demanding the very same way he tells me that he's not. Nothing comes out. Politeness blocks my pleads from ever leaving my mouth. Politeness of which I thought was mutual until now. I am a fool. I am a mouse. Is little boy even listening to me? Was little boy ever listening to me? Is anybody out there listening to me? Please, I am begging you. In some way, maybe he was right. Maybe I am God. Jesus. Was he ever fondled as he was tied to the cross? Did God want paintings made and shown to the public, the art depicting his own child, naked, beaten, bleeding? Was his vision ever spotted from the pain and told that it was a good thing? Little boy's nails are a crown of thorns across my scalp, fisting through my hair as he pushes my head down to his crotch. He said my hair was too beautiful to cut, only to ask in front of his friends if the curtains match the drapes. I ask little boy to turn the lights off so that he can't see through my windows, so God can't see me. Was God ever scared of the dark? I am. I'm terrified. I hate it. I want to see just in case there is a confession that starts an interrogation and I need to gaslight Christ. In case little boy wants to tell me that he's sorry, I'll know what for and spare him the uncomfortable elaboration. I'm scared of what lies behind my eyelids. Eventually, I give up and stare at nothing. God, do you see this? I don't want God to see this. Maybe if I play dead, God won't see this. Maybe if I play dead, the boy will stop. Little boy is baring his teeth. He's looking right at me. I don't want little boy to beat a dead thing. I am a fool. I am a mouse. My only other option is to let him kill me. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. I scream, but from my lips only mumbles manage to leave. You lied to me. You lied to me. You lied to me. All I can do is kneel, completely still. I don't make a sound, not a twitch, not a squeak. I don't care what happens anymore so long as God can't see it. I am always apologizing to him just so that God can't see his sins. Little boy says we share them because we're in this together, right? The boy says if God sees his sins, then they are ours, and thus I must atone for him. I am a fool. I am a mouse. I forgave apologies that were never asked. Excusing him, his fingers, as they invaded the mentality of my youth, crawling through my ears and rotting in my skull, I was 2 past noon. He was only a few minutes ahead, but this was well into the evening. I've sworn myself to secrecy. I would rather forget than report memories, hands on my skin that only I have proof of. I hate it. I just want to go home. This is all I can ever think about anymore, that every day rape assault victims remain silent and smiling in the classrooms. Does that sound cliche? It sounds cliche, right? Why is rape cliche now? They have invaded our minds, our bodies, our writing. I am frightened, furious. I am so furious. Rage turns the ink in our pens blood red as we write sentence after sentence after sentence, because to hope, to pray that little boy will ever receive an appropriate sentence has proved useless. I remember exactly when I was killed. I was at his house for dinner, a family dinner. I felt something touch my leg under the table. I thought it was their dog, their cute little golden retriever trying to steal my food. I was so excited to pet that damn dog. Fluffy little face, beady, playful eyes. I look under the dining table only to find his hand on my thigh, hungry. Right then, I smell flowers on the grave belonging to the child I was robbed of. The child that I am still. At that moment in time, I would have rather died than ever felt his hands and mouth inside of my body. We are dying. I'm not talking about suicide or school shootings. I'm talking about when we look in the mirror and see a corpse. tiger stripes up our arms, and rose thorns in her hair, and pine needles in her thighs, and bite marks on our necks. There were 2 temporary bruises. One on my right breast and one on my Adam's apple. Temporary bruises that left permanent scars. Cattle marks, bite marks that still burn, where my vocal cords were devoured and ripped out from me. Squeaks, screams I swallowed. We are not hollow. We are not empty shells of human beings. We are everything with no walls to hold us together. Boundaries broken. Hearts broken. Minds broken. But we're more than that. We are more than fool. We are more than mouse. We are more than scars. We are more than hurt. Hell, we are more than healing. We are everything and more. All that you have heard tonight is a collective of true stories from anonymous students in this school that I have worked with personally to personify into my poetry. All events have taken place recently, between of January 2023 to present day. I've been editing this poem since last night. Many of these stories, if not all of them, I have heard, seen for myself. And now you all have too. If any of the dozens of students who have given me your voices to weave with my own are here in the audience tonight, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you so much for those emotional pieces, Ari.
Thank you. Now we'd like to introduce our next speaker, Jen McKee, here to show you that you can enjoy life in so many different ways at any age. Come on out.
So one Monday night in November 2023, I found myself in a Michael's craft store with one of those red shopping baskets in one hand and a list in the other. Oh, sorry, this was the list I had. I was freaking out a little bit. A drawing class that I'd signed up for was starting in a little less than an hour, and I was looking at this list going, I don't know what a 4B pencil versus an H pencil versus an F pencil, like what these designations mean. I didn't know what Canson paper, I still kind of don't know what Canson paper is. I was kind of spiraling in the store, but I was still trying to kind of like just gather them as quickly as I could. But this kind of made me start thinking, am I going to be kind of the village idiot of the class? I hadn't taken an art class since 7th grade when I was about 40 years earlier, so it'd been a minute. So I was already kind of like whipped up and nervous. And then, of course, because I was just buying the supplies before class, I was late. So when I got there, I walked into this darkened room where people were kind of already sketching a still life that the teacher had set up. And I thought, crap, I really was hoping to not just be tossed into the deep end. I was hoping to get some instruction, do some exercises, kind of warm up a little bit, but that wasn't happening. So I just frantically got stuff out of my bag, started drawing, and the first thing that I could do was the far picture. It was like this little 2-inch doodle. And you can see how scared, like just from the size, just from the scope of that, you can see how nervous and how much anxiety I had about venturing out and doing this thing that I didn't feel confident doing. And then the teacher very gently kind of nudged me and said, like, well, why don't, because I was done in 10 minutes. Everyone else is like shading and doing like a lot of detail work. And the teacher kind of gently said, well, why don't you, try another take at it, but like make it larger, make it bigger. And so I did. And, of course, there were people in the class who were more advanced and more polished than I was. But also, I felt, not terrible about this, but I certainly was self-conscious. But I had to remind myself that I was there to learn, not necessarily do something I already knew how to do. And as I often tell my daughters, flailing a little bit or even failing is part of the learning process. So you may have wondered, given how worked up I was about this, why on earth did I sign up for a class when it gave me this much anxiety? Well, it was largely because I'd read this book during the pandemic. Tom Vanderbilt's Beginners, The Joy and Transformative Power of Lifelong Learning. Now, kind of the starting point of this book was him talking about how, as adults, many of us are in these waiting rooms while our kids are in classes and lessons and workshops, and how he spent all this time in waiting rooms with parents just kind of staring at their phones. And this kind of brings him to ask himself, when and why do we stop being the ones going into those rooms? Why aren't we acquiring skills and learning new things once we get to adulthood? And he really breaks it down to the 3 reasons. We tend to view learning as something we do in childhood, that this is something, as an adult, you put childish things away, including making time to acquire new skills. What you have is what you have, and that's it. We also claim lack of time and energy, which that's legitimate. A lot of us have families, we have jobs, we have other things pulling on our time, so that is an understandable reason why we don't necessarily seek this out for ourselves. There's also this fear of being embarrassed or looking silly, which in my experience, I think almost gets worse as you get older. Like you really, really, really don't want to put yourself out there if you're just starting from square one. There's something just very humbling about it. But given all those things, all those reasons, and they are legitimate, why people don't necessarily acquire new skills in adulthood, flying in the face of that are all the benefits that you get from doing just that. The first one I want to focus on is the primary one. There's a substantial improvement in cognitive abilities when you learn something new. You might be surprised, maybe you won't be, that there's some cognitive ability decline that starts to show in the 30s and 40s. There's much more of a pronounced drop-off after age 60, but there's detectable deficiencies happening in your 30s and 40s. Now, this has been chalked up historically as just a natural part of aging, that this is just how it goes. But there were a couple of researchers, a couple of psychologists, who started questioning whether this was something more similar to what happens when students lose some skills over the course of a summer, that when they're not going to school every day, they kind of lose those math and reading skills that they have to kind of like get back in the fall. Except, of course, with adulthood, this could be even worse, because it's years, often, and sometimes decades, where we're not necessarily given the opportunity to further education in some way or take on more job training. You kind of get set in your pattern. So these 2 researchers did a 3-month experiment of people aged 58 to 86, and they asked them to adopt, for 3 months, a new hobby or skill, learning a language, iPad skills, whatever they wanted to do, knitting. They took on a variety of things. And what they found, admittedly this is one study, but it's still pretty stunning, was that the people who completed this program, by the end of that 3-month period, their cognitive abilities resembled those of people 30 years younger than they were, which is just amazing to see that. But I really think it's because learning new skills, despite the discomfort involved in that as an adult, just kind of like adds to that plasticity of your mind, and it just has all these benefits. In addition to the cognitive benefits, there's opportunities for more social interaction. A lot of times I've signed up for classes, and even if I don't end up going out for drinks or going out to lunch with the people in the class, it's still I'm having some more interaction with people that I didn't before. The second thing in addition, it promotes emotional well-being. I will say that this came along in middle age, or late 40s. And at that time, I think for a lot of us, things kind of turned beige in terms of like movies and books you read. Everything kind of just feels been there, done that. Everything starts to feel a little overfamiliar. So I think that's part of that emotional well-being, is it kind of wakes you up a little bit. That also in middle age, you start losing things. I lost a job I loved. I lost my last surviving parent. I lost running. I was a runner for decades, and I kind of lost the ability to do that in the same way that I had. So you kind of, at that point, when you're losing things, you want something in the plus column. You want to add things back to your life. And the one way to do that is with new things that you learn. So getting back to the drawing class, I went back. Obviously, I was humbled, but went back to the second class, did my homework, and we drew some objects. The one in the middle is what we did in class. That was my homework after that class. So, I'm getting a little practice and getting some coaching from the teacher, and things are getting a little better. You'll see my homework looks pretty similar. So the fact that I, managed to kind of do it again on my own, using the techniques and stuff that the teacher taught me, I was just in awe. I mean, that sounds stupid to be in awe of yourself, but I just didn't know. Like, you don't know what you're capable of if you don't step out of your comfort zone and try these other things. Now, I will say, like, not everything in the class was a home run for me. There were things that I did better than other things. The colored pencils, I was scared to death of the colored pencil class. And then that flower came out of me, and I'm like, I like colored pencils now, I guess. But, the figure drawing with charcoal, that's really tough. Like, I struggled with that. And these are probably my best attempts that I had. And many people will tell you portrait drawing is really, really hard. And that's probably the best face I've ever attempted with the coaching from the teacher. But it's, it was a mixed bag. I didn't hit a home run every time, is what I'm saying. But I was excited enough by the successes that I did have that I was kind of revved up to try other stuff, which brings me to my next point. Trying new things, like taking a class like that, engenders a desire to do more new things. You somehow become braver, or it becomes easier to kind of suck at something. You just kind of like get the courage and the desire to try other things. So after the class ended, one of the things that I thought about was I'd been going to my daughter's choir concerts. They are both in their school choirs, and I'd always been a band kid. I'd never had the opportunity to try choral singing. And I'd always been kind of curious about it and thought, like, that would be really kind of a neat thing to try. But of course, I kind of thought, that ship has sailed. If you don't do it as a young person, it's probably just too late. But of course, I see this on Facebook shortly thereafter, and I was scared. I was terrified. And there were 3 nights that they were having auditions. And I skipped the first one, and I couldn't get myself to go to the second one. The third one, it's like, this is it. This is the only chance I got. If I'm going to do this, I got to do this. So I went, and when I went to the audition, the choir director said, "What's your experience in choir and choral singing?" And I said, "I don't have any." I said, "I've played an instrument for years, and I have a decent ear for pitch. As a result of that, I can read music." But they decided to give me a shot, and based on the audition, here's photographic evidence. That's me scowling in the middle. But despite my expression, I love singing with this group. It is wonderful. And, it's not been easy, but I'm now, like, a year later. We've come a year after this session, and I'm back in it. I've been in it every session since. It's this wonderful thing that, again, I was terrified to try and to just put myself out there, but it has been a joy. I also found, like, shortly after getting into the choir, a 6-week watercolor class just at the Hawk. I mean, it's not a high cost or prestigious thing, just kind of a low intensity class. And as you can see, it's like a child just kind of painting, playing with watercolor. I'd never touched watercolors in my life. However, same thing with the drawing class. A few classes in, like around class 3, things changed enormously. I couldn't believe, again, where this was coming from. I'm like, I just seemed weird. It seemed like somebody else took the wheel and made this happen somehow. But it's not. It's just there. You have to have the guts and the courage to actually just venture out and try it. Now, this isn't going to happen every time. I've taken a few tap dancing classes. I am not doing well. But that having been said, it's still like a fun, because I don't know. I just don't know. And each time it's this adventurous journey that I'm going on. So, of course, as I said, doing new things starts making you want to do other things. So I've been just building this list for the last year now, as I have ideas of things I'd love to try. Improv and stand-up. I love watching stand-up. It terrifies me. The idea terrifies me. But again, I'd love to learn more about the craft of what they do. Photography, getting a better composition in pictures that I take. Live storytelling. Podcasting, I've struggled with this one. I've really tried to look for a class or a workshop or something. It's a little tough, but I mean, it's still on my list and it's still something I want. A meditation retreat. It's a little frightening to think about walking around for days not saying a word and just meditating all day, but I would like to try it, and I think I would learn something from it. Tap dancing, again, like I said, it's not going well, but I keep trying, and I love watching and hearing people tap dancing. So this is something I'm just going to have to stick with longer and hope that I improve slowly but surely. A Zumba or spin class or strength training. I just got a fit pass at the Hawk, so I'm just kind of trying it all. Since I had to give up running, I'm trying to fill that void and figure out what I like. So I've taken a few Zumba classes in the last couple weeks, and I will try the others very soon. And TED Talks. This was actually on my list. And so when an email came out saying, hey, we're going to do this at the Farmington High School, it seemed like this opportunity, obviously I have to try, whether I'm terrified of doing it or not. So some more takeaways. I would say that if this is inspired, which I hope it does, if this inspires you to kind of break out of your comfort zone and try to acquire a new skill or try a new hobby, what you put in is absolutely what you get out. When I took that drawing class and the watercolor class, even though it required me to carve out time, I did the homework. When I was joining the choir, they put me on second alto. We don't get the melody. That's not a melody part. You have to learn how to do inner harmonies, and I had to learn how to see my part in the larger sheet music. And so there was definitely a steep learning curve, and I had to practice and listen to the rehearsal recordings a lot. But again, I love singing with this group. It makes me so happy. So I am willing to put in the work, and that's what makes it so satisfying. And this is also my second point, which is the classes and rehearsals for me, things that are set in time, are ideal because they integrate the new adventures into your calendar. It's not a matter of, well, I didn't have anything scheduled on Sunday afternoon, so I'll spend 3 hours drawing. We never do that. We never do that because, for one thing, there's always other things to do or that you feel that you should do. Whereas if you have something on your calendar, you're going to show up. You're going to do it. So those are what work best for me. And that's what I continue to do as I go forward and continue with this. So this is where I'm arriving at, which is for centuries, people were kind of striving to find the fountain of youth, and we still do to a certain extent in a different way. We're always trying to figure out how to stay young, how to look young, how to feel young. But frankly, I really think that we're missing the boat. When we think about these guys looking for a magical body of water that you bathe in or that you drink and that will make you feel vital and young again, I think that's really missing the boat entirely, because to me, it's the act of discovery itself that makes you feel young again and gives you that sense of wonder and hope and awe that I think a lot of us are missing as we get older. So I would invite you all, just as a parting wish, to go out and allow yourself to kind of suck at something, because you just might be surprised at what happens after. Thank you.
Personally, my original goal when I got older was just this: retire, lay on my couch, and watch documentaries all day.
Wow, Zainab, you actually have a plan for your life. Good for you. I wonder what life will be like when I'm an adult.
You know, all the adult stuff, banking, billing, insurance, all that to manage, and yard work.
Well, I don't know, Zainab. That all sounds pretty fun. Plus, you can also have some fun art classes in there. I mean, going to Michael's and choosing between 6 different kinds of pencils sounds pretty cool to me. But I wonder if Miss McKee also gets enough sleep with all of her new hobbies she's developed.
Speaking of which, our next speaker, Amrita.
Amrita Rendachintala is a high school student from Farmington, Michigan. When she isn't sleeping or engrossed in her schoolwork, she can be found sketching on her iPad, listening to music, or reading a good book on the couch. Having discovered a love for biology, she hopes to pursue a healthcare career in the future. Through her experience as a high school student, she has developed an appreciation for sleep, or lack thereof. In this talk, she explores how we should all view sleep in our modern-day world and her relationships with biphasic sleep. Let's welcome her out.
Testing? No, everybody hearing me? Yeah? Oh, my heart is running 1,000,000 miles a minute. Well, why don't I get right into it? So before I talk about the main subject of my talk, which is sleep itself, I'd like to share a little bit of a personal story. So in November 2023, so just about a year and a half ago, I started having serious stomach issues. And when I went to go visit my doctor to get them checked out, she asked me the general questions about my lifestyle and all that. And eventually, she asked me if I was getting enough sleep at night. Now, this was a question that I was hesitant to answer for many reasons. The first of which being that I wasn't sleeping as well as I should have been. Second, which I don't like to admit, is that I didn't like admitting that I was a problem. But eventually, I gathered the courage and told her that I had been sleeping in a very unconventional manner, 4 hours in the afternoon and 4 hours at nighttime. And my mom, who's actually in the audience right now, was in the corner of the appointment room. And, she was on the edge of her seat just waiting to listen to my doctor lecture me about my sleep problems. Needless to say, that did not happen. And what my doctor told me next came as a shock to me, actually. Instead of telling me that my sleep schedule was a main culprit for all of my health issues, she told me that there actually was very little evidence showing a relationship between sleep cycles like mine and negative impacts on our health. And that if anything, this kind of sleep that I was practicing, as well as other alternative sleep cycles, were becoming new and more efficient ways for people with busy lives to get their 8 hours in. Now, up on the screen here, I have a little bit of a graphic comparing my sleep cycle to what we traditionally think of as sleep. Now, the sleep that many of you in the audience might be practicing is called monophasic sleep. Essentially, monophasic quite literally means one phase, and that's where you take all of those 8 hours of sleep and do it all in one stretch. Now, what I practice is called biphasic sleep, essentially 2 phases. And biphasic sleep goes a little beyond just splitting your sleep into half. If any of you out here actually take a nap after your work schedule or whatever it might be, you're a biphasic sleeper. Now, there's also polyphasic sleep, and that's where a person splits their sleep into more than 2 segments. Now, before I talk about my specific experience with biphasic sleep, I'd like to talk a little bit more just about sleep in general and why it's extremely beneficial for us. Now, up on the screen here with my very so professionally done visual, I have a couple of the very important benefits of sleep listed. All right, first, leftmost on the screen, we have fat breakdown and storage. Depending on the regularity of your sleep schedule, as well as how long your sleep lasts, your body efficiently stores fat in various sections of your body. And conversely, there are a lot of studies that show an association between a lack of sleep and weight gain. Next up, we have hormones. Hormones are extremely important for triggering certain responses in your body's cells. And many hormones are produced in your sleeping time. For teens such as myself, as well as kids that are younger than me, a very important hormone that is produced is the growth hormone, which is extremely important for certain stages of development. And on the right side of the screen here, I have what is probably one of the most important benefits of sleep, and that is to our immune system. While you sleep, your immune system essentially does a full body check around all of your cells and looks for infection. And it also produces antibodies that can protect you against harmful bacteria and viruses. Additionally, inflammation is a common immune response that gets lowered when you sleep. Sleep also has all kinds of important benefits for our minds and our brain. For instance, there are 2 specific regions of the brain that I've highlighted up here: the hippocampus, which is towards the middle and inside your brain, and the neocortex, which is more along the surface. And these 2 parts of your brain work together in tandem to store, filter, and alter your memories that you've acquired throughout the day, and consolidate them, and eventually transfer them into your neural networks, where you can restore them and retrieve them in the long term. Second, we have essentially the brain's version of hormones, neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are signaling molecules that cause your brain to produce certain responses to environmental or bodily stimuli. An example of a neurotransmitter very well known is serotonin. Makes you feel happy and alert. And while you sleep, the structures that receive and interpret these neurotransmitters, which are called receptors, regain their sensitivity. So essentially, sleep is not only important for our physical body, but also for our cognitive ability and our ability to respond to what's going on around us. Now, I'd also like to address the other side of this issue, which is the potential risks that can come as a result of lack of sleep. Up at the top here, just as I mentioned before, on the immune system, when a person doesn't get enough sleep at night, your immune system hasn't had the chance to produce all those antibodies and develop your defense system. And as a result, I'm sure many of you heard this at some point, people that don't get enough sleep at night tend to get sick more often. And this is why. Next, strain on the heart. When you don't sleep, your risk of having heart attacks and other heart conditions goes up by a large amount. And finally, a higher risk for all kinds of complications. This includes obesity, cardiovascular disease, and heart disease, among many others. And these are just a few of the many, many innumerable effects that can happen to our bodies when we don't sleep. Now, after hearing all these terrible things that can happen when we don't sleep properly, we might temporarily forget, what keeps us busy in the first place? Why are we finding alternative ways to sleep? Why do we forego sleep? And the main reason is being productive at work. Sleep cycles and their alternatives have found their ways into cultures all across the world. For instance, in Spain, there's the concept of a siesta, essentially where between the hours of 2 to 5 p.m., businesses shut down and people go home and sleep or relax or take part in other forms of leisure to get some extra rest throughout the day. Italy has a similar concept called riposo, except that's between the hours of 1 and 4 p.m. Old English literature has references to a first and a second sleep, Essentially, the first sleep is where they first go to bed. And then later on, they wake up to tend to their crops or complete other work that they couldn't do throughout the day. And then they take their second sleep. And actually, many agricultural workers, both today and in the past, would wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning, in the middle of their sleep, to take care of their farm, then eventually go back to sleep. So this concept of finding alternative sleep cycles to work around the demands of our lives is not necessarily a new concept. But what is new is how much we're learning about how destructive it can be to our bodies. Now, for teens such as myself, a lot of what we're balancing might be jobs, extracurriculars, taking care of younger siblings, and loads of homework. For many of you in the audience who are adults, that might be jobs, financial responsibilities, taking care of family, and so on and so forth. And biphasic sleep, in a way, has helped me and many others that I know, regardless of age, manage these demands of life, but not without the relative costs. As mentioned before, I sleep 4 hours in the afternoon and then 4 at night. And here are some of the benefits that I've found result from my practice of biphasic sleep. First, I find that I tend to get work done much more efficiently when I've had that time to decompress after coming home and taking a nap. Second, I am a person with asthma, and my asthma tends to act up more at nighttime. So if I were to have an attack, it makes it easier to stay awake and treat it and be alert as to how my symptoms are progressing because I had that extra sleep earlier in the day. And finally, emotional stability. After a full day of school or work or whatever it might be, we all tend to get a little bit overwhelmed. And that 4-hour nap makes me much more calm and ready to tackle the next load of work that I have for the day. However, a lot of these benefits don't go unpunished. For instance, having practiced biphasic sleep for almost 4 to 5 years now, I can say that regardless of whether I sleep or not, I tend to feel constantly tired. Additionally, I find that my performance isn't where it should be, meaning on tests or homework or whatever it might be, I tend to make errors that I wouldn't make if I was a little bit more alert. Additionally, as I'm sure many of you can infer, sleeping 4 hours in the afternoon after school makes it a little bit difficult to do extracurriculars and other after-school events that tend to take place at that time. So this ends up not being compatible with certain parts of my school life. And last but not least, illness. I've found that over the past few years, having practiced this new type of sleep, I've begun to become more sick than I did in the past. Now, you all might be wondering, well, you sleep 4 hours in the afternoon, 4 hours in the nighttime. That's 8 in total. What exactly is the issue? And the issue is that sleeping and waking is not this perfect process that starts and ends immediately. Now, there's some of you in the audience who fall asleep as soon as you go to bed. I envy you. But that's not the case with me and for many other people. I'd like to revisit the graphic that I had up on the screen a couple slides ago, comparing monophasic and biphasic and polyphasic sleep, but now with a little bit more reality added into it. And that reality component is the fact that it takes some time for us to fall asleep, and it takes some time for us to get up from that sleep. As a result, dividing your sleep into segments like that, you end up making yourself fall asleep more times and getting up more. And that means you've begun to compromise some time that you could have spent sleeping on making yourself fall asleep and get up. At the right, when you include this time taken to fall asleep and get up, you see that the total amount of sleep that you get when you segment your sleep ends up being less than what it would be if you slept all in one stretch. Additionally, this sleep deprivation also comes as a result of sleep phases and how those work. So sleep isn't this complete one long process that gets stretched out. Sleep happens in phases of 90 minutes. And so about every 1.5 hours, you've finished one cycle of sleep. Now, when you segment your sleep into multiple intervals, you have a much higher risk of waking up in the middle of one of those phases. And when you wake up in the middle of a sleep cycle, you end up extremely tired, more so than you would be if you had finished it. And as a result, because you've done this multiple times, your tiredness tends to be exacerbated throughout the day. Now, these are a few of the effects that both I have felt and are very general to those who face sleep deprivation. So if there are any of you out there who are wondering, I don't sleep like this weirdo on the stage, I actually sleep at night, this still applies to you. So long-term sleep deprivation tends to affect your ability to concentrate and put your full effort into the task at hand. This might be concentrating at work, concentrating at school, or it could also take the form of much more serious things, such as distracted driving. Additionally, a chronic lack of sleep tends to build up and increase your risk of developing stress problems, which go on to decrease your adaptability to situations. You become panicked, and you aren't able to think of creative solutions to the task at hand when it's not something that you have memory of doing. And this trickles down into all kinds of parts of our lives. Now, what can we do about this? Our society demands us to work and work and work, as I'm sure all of you have experienced here. But the reality is that regardless of what our life's demands are, or how our schedule is, or what our responsibilities are, we have to find a balance at some point. For people like me, that might mean transitioning out of biphasic sleep and trying to make that divide a little more drastic and sleep more at night. For some of you, maybe you've had trouble falling asleep at night. And that might mean taking time away from a screen before you go to bed, not drinking a lot of coffee, or turning off all the lights and sleeping in darkness. Whatever it might be, we all need to find a balance. Now, I'd like to leave all of you with one final message, and that's that even if what I'm saying right now doesn't completely resonate with you, or even if it doesn't seem completely realistic, I'm essentially telling you all that unless you sleep perfectly 8 hours a night, that you're going to have this happen to you. Even if that doesn't seem real, the consequences are very much real. All of these issues that I mentioned earlier, sickness, heart problems, and whatnot, they become real very quickly when they start happening. And I myself am already paying the price as I stand talking to you on this stage. So if there's anything I'd have you take away, it's that your body was not simply meant to work. Work was meant to sustain you. Your body is your main priority. And if there's any of you in this audience today who took time away from your responsibilities to come here and listen to all of us speak, I am eternally grateful, first of all. But I would ask of you that don't drink 2 or 3 shots of espresso, stay up until 2 or 3 a.m. and get that work done. Go to bed and give your body the rest that it needs. Thank you.
Wow, she definitely took the initiative to fix her sleeping schedule.
Honestly, Zainab, maybe you should do that too. You should really incorporate some more sleep into your schedule. Just look at how sunken your eye bags have gotten.
What are you talking about? I'm gonna ignore you just said that, and you guys should too.
It's fine. I'm honestly just trying to help you. You should be thanking me. All I'm trying to do is push your little initiatives into reality. You're welcome.
Wait.
Oh?
I just got major deja vu, guys. Okay, fine. I'll incorporate some sleep to my schedule here and there, but doesn't our last speaker talk about putting your aspirations into reality?
Okay, you're taking a little too long with this. I'm gonna need you to hurry it up.
Oh my God, yes, it was Chris. Okay, let me talk to him. Chris Palmer is a hockey mental performance coach for pro and amateur players in the NHL, AHL, college, juniors, and Tier 1 youth hockey across the US, Canada, and Europe. He describes his coaching as, quote, coaching heart, head, and guts, building confidence, mental toughness, team unity, and compete level intensity. He says the biggest thing holding people back is instinctive doubt, worry, and fear. He coaches athletes to manage those distractions to get what they want on the ice and in their lives. Let's make some noise for Chris Palmer, everybody.
Well, it's so nice to see you. I'm coming out here today because I want to change your life. And I really want to change your life. But I've got to figure out whether I'm assuming too much. Somebody changed my life years ago, and that's where this whole thing came from. I think if there's one purpose in my life besides raising my kids, it's this. All I want to do is help people see this thing that I didn't see the first 13 years of my life. The first 13 years of my life, I thought it was a worthless piece of crap. I grew up kind of poor. We had a hose coming in our house for water, and you brushed your teeth and filled up the toilet with the same hose. Now, believe me, I got it made. I had meals. I had parents who loved me. I had family members who loved me, and I'm so lucky to have that. But it was easy to be the target, the poor kid, the kid who has a hose coming in his house. So for me, it was really, really easy to tie that to bullying and think I was nothing. I mean, I really thought I was nothing as a little kid, and I met this coach at Largo High School in Largo, Florida, where I grew up. His name was Brent Haley, and the guy changed my life because he taught me this. And what this is he goes, you could be something because you already are something. Figure he was lying to me. Most adults had lied to me my whole life. Most people treated me awful. I figure he couldn't be telling me the truth. But he didn't lie. And over the course of the next 4 years, I was this kid who was bullied around, never good at any sports, never good at anything, didn't really feel like I fit in at all. And this guy taught me to be a runner. And I know it's not glamorous. It's not really even very technical. What do? You go straight, you take a left. It's that kind of a thing. But it was amazing because I went from being this kid who didn't think he was anything to being this kid who could actually do something and actually succeed and be on teams that had some success. And I wound up being the poor kid who had college paid for and then grad school paid for, where I got a master's in counseling psychology to start thinking more about this. But maybe none of that is relevant to you. So let me ask you a question just in case. I'm not going to ask you to rat yourself out. No reason for you to share something with me. You barely know me. But let me ask you, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand, if you're pretty aware that people all over the world tend to lean toward the negative in the things they think. Would you raise your hand if you are aware of that? Okay, there's a ton of hands. That's great. Now let me ask you not to raise your hands this time and think, is that you? Do you feel like there's a spin of doubt, fear, worry, concern, the things that hold you back, that keep you from asking somebody out in a romantic relationship, that keeps you from going for the jobs you want, keeps you from trying to do anything that might put you out there outside of the safety of this vanilla ice cream existence where you're safe, and taking this risk that might make you sit in front of everyone and be embarrassed or fail? Can you raise your hand if you're aware that people feel those things? I think it's an instinct. I honestly think it's an instinct built into us. Our brains go on all the time, and I'm pretty sure it's because we used to be cavemen and we've got this survival thing inside of us. And this survival thing is so awesome because it makes us afraid of everything. It makes us afraid of loud noises. It makes us afraid of not being accepted into groups. And it makes sense. Imagine right now we're in Detroit, Michigan. Imagine in the winter without the building and the lights and the sound and the clothing, and we're surviving, and we somehow have to make it out there and make a fire and make things work. And it's so hard. It's freezing cold. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And imagine you're in a caveman tribe trying to make it work, and all of a sudden, for some reason, you do something that pisses everybody else off, and you don't fit in anymore. What could happen to you? And I'm pretty convinced what could happen to you is they might be so upset with you that all of a sudden, you get less and less. Maybe you don't get a meal. Maybe you don't get this. Maybe you get kicked out of the tribe, or maybe they kill you. I think it's an animal existence, and I think that part of us is built in it. So I think it's really, really good. If there's a really loud noise in the back there, it would be great if you looked around real quick to see what it was. If there was fire somewhere, you'd probably run away, and that's really, really good. So our brains are on all the time. But let me give you an example just to prove this just for a second. You can't turn your brain off. You can't turn your brain off. You can't turn your brain off. So if we have this tendency toward the negative, toward self-preservation and everything else, which I totally believe we have, your brain nonstop is constantly feeding you thoughts all the time. Thoughts that are negative. So let me use an example. Right now, I'd like you just to try to make your mind still. Don't think of a thing. Don't think of a word. Don't think of the word black or blank or clear slate or white or whatever it is. Don't say to yourself, don't think, don't think, don't think. I want you to just no thoughts at all. Try to have no thoughts just for a moment. 30 seconds, no thoughts, ready, go. And would you mind, if you happen to have a thought, raise your hand if something popped up? This is what happens. I could do this for the rest of this talk, and it would be the same thing. It's the same for every group I've ever worked with because our brains are always going all the time. But here's the thing. If we have this tendency toward the negative, and our brains are going all the time, then how can you have a great life with those thoughts? Look at the world right now. Look at all the fighting, the infighting, the us versus them. Oh my gosh, it's unbelievable. And this happens in every single aspect of life. I want you to know tonight that you can change your life. You really can, in the same way that Brent Haley changed my life all those years ago. Because he told me, Chris, if you think you are or you think you aren't, you're probably right. If you think you're going to do well or you think you're not going to do well, you're probably right. It's always your thoughts. When I coach athletes, every single level, from 8-year-old kids in house leagues in hockey, all the way up to almost 30-year-old men in the NHL. I can tell you they're all the same. They're the same in Europe, they're the same in Canada, they're the same in the United States. They're all the same in that every time they want something bad, they fear failing. Every time they want something bad, they're afraid that somebody's going to say, oh, you're not enough, you're not good enough, or you're a fraud. People are worried about this stuff all the time, and it holds it back. It holds everybody back from what they really want. And I don't want you to be held back because I remember what it's like to be 13 years old and thinking I'm nothing. And I was just so sick of it, I could puke in my mouth. And this guy saved my life because he taught me, it's always your thoughts, it's always your thoughts. Let me tell you a story about Dakota Joshua. He's in the NHL, he's from Detroit, fantastic guy. He's 7 foot a million, big giant guy. He's not, he's 6'4", but he's like 200-something pounds. He's amazing, power forward, incredible guy. He's had a ton of games in the NHL. This guy's kind enough and nice enough with his time to come down to Detroit to work with one of my teams. A team of 13-year-olds, interestingly enough. And there's a kid in there, and the kid's really, really tall, and the kid's really, really good, and he's the captain of the team. And he raises his hand, he says, Dakota, sometimes I feel like a worthless piece of crap. He used another word, but I'm trying to keep it clean. I feel like a worthless piece of crap. A kid who's so successful says, sometimes I feel like a worthless piece of crap. What do you think Dakota said? Do you think Dakota said, oh, just work better, son, work harder, great things will happen? He could have said that. People say that kind of crap. But he said the real thing. The real thing. 6'4", 200-something pounds, NHL guy. A guy known to only fight to protect his teammates. A guy with a heart. He said, me too. This 13-year-old kid who thinks he's all alone in this world, thinks he's all alone in the negative, thinks he's all alone, thinking he's a piece of crap. He's validated now because Dakota Joshua says, God, me too. He's got to work past it. He's got to get better thoughts. You got to work through your stuff. You got to puke out how bad you feel and get past the doubt and fear and make a choice, make a choice, make a choice, make a choice. And that's part of the answer here. Because making a choice to do something gets you out of that spin. Making a choice to do something gets you from being trapped in this thing. And honestly, kids tell me this all the time. I had 4 suicide kids in the last 2 years. 4 guys who contacted me. I'm talking age 13 all the way up to guys who are 20-something years old, 20 years old and juniors, calling me or texting me between 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock a.m. at night, telling me I can't take another moment because their heads are so full of this. I suck, I'm awful, I'm terrible, I'm a piece of crap, letting my coach down, letting my team down. This kind of stuff spins in everybody's head, and we sit quiet. It's almost like we think it's our real voice, but it's not. It's this instinct crap. Now, TED isn't really a fan of just opinion. They love new thoughts, they love ideas, but they really want to have something that's evidence-based. So let me go over on that side for a second. I've given you my opinion of this, and my opinion based on the anecdotal evidence of working with hundreds of players. And I can tell you, it feels like the truth. But let me tell you that in cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the most successful therapies in psychology talks about your thoughts. It talks about dealing with negative thoughts. It talks about challenging negative thoughts to see if they're right because they're holding us back. And it's a really successful therapy. But there's something else too. You know, the theme of this whole talk is flow. The theme of this whole event here is flow. I love the idea of flow, the idea of somehow being so alive that you're not caught in that negative spin of crap in your head and you're so engaged in doing something you lose track of time. And one of the smartest guys I've ever known of, his name's Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology, spent decades working on what's wrong with people. And he's just like, there's got to be more. And he's done research, so much research, you can look him up, on what works to make people happy. And he came up with a thing so impressive that the U.S. Army uses it to work in resiliency training with the military. He came up with something called PERMA. It's an acronym. The first one says we feel better when we have positive emotions. The next one's E. We feel better when we're so engaged in something that we lose track of time. Flow. R, relationships. We love relationships. We're social, we're connected. We have quality ones, we feel better. M, meaningful experiences. And the last one is achieving things, accomplishing things that matter to us. This is what makes a life, according to so much research that he's done with so many people. So when you put all this together, you get Chris Palmer, the mental performance coach for hockey players who felt like a piece of crap for the first 13 years of his life, and his life changed. Yeah, it's a great story, but does it matter? It matters. And it lines up with research that says our thoughts are everything. And if you can get to the point where you can manage the doubt, fear, worry, spin, and take a choice, and make a choice to step out and make a choice, do something, take a risk, make mistakes. If you can do that, your life can change. And it's so scary. And that's why when you walk down the mall, walk in school, you see people just getting by. And I get it because life's so freaking hard. I remember, and I hate to tell you this, but at the peak of my success, whatever that was, after getting a master's degree and working for Nike for 4 years, hand making a shoe to try to get a sneaker job with Tinker Hatfield, the guy who makes the cool shoes, I didn't get the job. A number of things went bad. I felt empty. And I got caught in the negative spin. And on a drive home from Jacksonville, coming across the Howard Franklin Bridge in Tampa at 2 a.m. one night, I'd thought about this, but I couldn't take another moment, like those kids who call me. And I almost took myself out. And I hate saying this because it's such a stigma, right? Oh, God, what's going on? But I got to say it because I want to change your lives. I want to change your lives right now. This isn't just something I'm doing. I want to change your lives and let you realize that our head's full of crap all the time, and the only way out is to fight back. And somehow, God, the universe, whatever it is, with all respect to whatever you believe, a picture popped up in my head of my mom, my dad, and my brother, and it's like, oh my God, what am I doing? And boom, thoughts, right? Thoughts. And I'm lucky, but in that moment, it changed my life again because it's easy to get caught in this thing. And I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? So I stopped, and I drove home. And I've never been back in that moment again because I put together what that great coach told me at 13. And what I learned in my master's degree and from coaching people and from what amazing psychologists have told us about how we are. Your only chance of having a life that feels like a life, and I want to share this with you now, is for you to realize your thoughts shape everything. And in the words of my coach, if you think you are or you think you aren't, you're probably right. So please, this single thought I want to give you is that no matter how bad it is, no matter how bad life is, you're in a divorce, your parents die, your girlfriend breaks up with you, your boyfriend breaks up with you, you lose a child, you don't know what to do, you didn't get in the college you want, you didn't make a team, you screwed up, you got an injury, whatever it is, whatever things just make you feel sick, you run out of money, you don't know where you're going to get your next meal, whatever it is, life is going to beat you over and over again. And the only answer I know, and the thing I want to share with you so bad, is that if you can get out of that spin for a moment and puke out how bad you feel and realize you've got this blank slate to do almost whatever you want. Right now, one of you guys could come up and punch me in the face, or you could go give your wallet to a homeless person. That's the range. Every freaking day, that's the range. And Dakota Joshua knew that because he could have sat there and act like he was all cool in that locker room. But instead, he told the truth to a kid and changed his life. The single thought is you get to choose. You get to choose, you get to choose, you get to choose. Till your last breath in hospice, you get to choose. And if you don't choose because you're afraid, you're just going along with this instinctive crap. And I don't want that for you. All I care about is raising my 4 kids and doing this. It's all I care about. My life was changed all those years ago, and I want to change yours now. Please, keep choosing. Keep choosing. Keep choosing. You deserve this. And thank you for everything.
Wow, Mr. Palmer. Thank you so much for that inspiring talk. I'm really going to start taking life by the reins, you know? Or I'm going to try to, anyway.
Try to, Anya. People have real aspirations in life, so at least I won't be trying. I will be stashing the reins.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let me just confirm what aspirations we're talking about here. The aspirations of you spending the rest of your days watching murder mystery documentaries on your couch? Those aspirations?
Oh, it's time for you to shut up.
Oh, okay. Rude. But seriously, we thank you all for being such an amazing audience today.
And again, thank you for enjoying our speakers and coming here.
Zainab and Anya, signing off.
Okay, but finally, we'd like to have a last final round of applause for our speakers, so if they could come out.
Come on out, speakers. Great job, everyone. Now we would like to welcome the TEDx team out.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. And now, Mr. Franks.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you,
Thank you.
Let's give it up again for our MCs. Lovely MCs.
Hilarious.
Lovely speakers. Our TEDx team. Thank you again to Chive Kitchen for the lovely catering. Thank you to All Pro Color Printing for all of the signage, the badges. Thank you to American Silkscreen for our lovely swag. Thank you for Nathan, for Grace, for Katie, for all the help with the lighting, with the stage direction, everything we couldn't have done without them. And again, last but not least, just thank you all for coming. Thank you for this wonderful event. And that's it. Enjoy your night. All right, TEDx team, if you guys wanted to get a full picture with everybody, let's do it. Speakers, if you want to as well.
Yeah.